Hello, my name is Catherine McLaughlin. I am the city reporter with the Concord Monitor, and we're here with another of our candidate forums for the 2025 Concord city elections. I'm joined today by incumbent Ward 9 Councilor Chris Schultz. We're going to kick things off with opening statements. Chris, whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm Chris Schultz. I'm honored to be at the end of the first term. Hopefully, I will be reelected, and I ask for your vote for Ward 9, which is the north part of Concord Heights from Loudon Road, and plus Keach Park and the surrounding area. I believe deeply in the notion that we should all love our neighbors, even when it's difficult, even when we disagree. I think that spirit of caring about everyone is actually what is the best thing about Concord, is that it is an empathetic and compassionate community. And I think it's especially important to say these things now when it's has gotten ugly in the broader sphere of government and politics. Among the priorities I think that we need to address are issues around traffic safety. We've had 2 deaths on Loudon Road in recent weeks, 1 pedestrian and 1 bicyclist. Those were preventable deaths. We also need to address things relevant to income inequality, so we reduce homelessness and increase access to housing opportunities, and just many other things that I know that Ward 9 cares about.
Great, thank you. Before we dive in on a lot of those issues, I do want to address that this is a makeup forum.
Sure.
We held a roundtable last week with your opponent that you didn't attend.
Sure.
He has questioned your attentiveness and your attendance as a counselor, and I'm wondering what your response is.
As far as I know, I've only missed 1 city council meeting. I heard that this is being said about me. I don't know what he's speaking of. I have served on 4 different committees for the city. 1 has ended, another has just started. I do my best to attend those, but they haven't always been with all of us in mind. For example, one of the committees I'm on is the birthplace of Concord, the 250th anniversary of Concord being a city. And all of the meetings until recently were on Thursdays, where I was also serving as state rep, and those have all coincided with legislative days. So I didn't feel comfortable missing any votes for that, but I've been aware of all the activities of that committee. So honestly, I'm not sure what he's speaking of, other than I do believe I turn up and support everybody in Ward 9 to the best of my ability.
And do you feel like you're able to juggle both being a state rep and being a counselor effectively?
As of right now, it's all that I do. So yes. And I do spend a lot of my time either researching, speaking to constituents, working with other counselors, especially with my counterpart in Ward 8, Ali Sekou. We do a great job of focusing on all the things around Wards 8 and 9 to keep the Heights in focus. And for example, we met with the mayor today to talk about what we could do to address the safety on Loudon Road. So we also, when we heard that one of the committees had voted suddenly to not support the Keach Park lights, which almost everybody in Ward 9 supports, there are some who do not, that was a shock to us. And so immediately we started meeting with people, and especially the mayor, who met with us the next day to talk about strategies for doing that. So, I do the best that I can, like anybody else in these jobs, but I don't believe, for what isn't essentially a volunteer job, I think I've only missed 1 city council meeting.
Okay. In a recent council meeting, you mentioned that you were moved by the story of Tim Russell.
Yes.
A young man in Concord who died while experiencing homelessness. He was in touch with multiple city services and right on the cusp of getting housing when he passed away. You said you wanted to see the city make changes to prevent the loss of others in situations like his. What specific things do you think Concord can do that Concord's not already doing to address that issue?
I'm so glad you asked that. I was looking forward to having that conversation. There are so many things we could do. I think for a long time, the city has needed a one-stop shop, a place where people who are in need of assistance can go to, because there are so many different places someone has to go to, for example, get rent assistance. They go to the Community Action Program. Maybe they go to the Concord Coalition to End Homelessness. City Welfare has a program to try to prevent homelessness if someone is on the verge of being evicted, or if their home has been foreclosed upon. Also, there is a consortium of churches in the Jewish Temple, and I believe also the mosque is also participating in a fund. So that includes a drop by one of the one of the churches in town manages that. Then you also have, like 2 or 3 other potential places. So for people who are already stressed out and trying to do what they need to do to keep their families or themselves doing all that they're supposed to be doing, I think that we need to do a much better job at being there for them. I mean, I feel like we do a much better job on a lot of other things, and it's just going to keep getting worse.
Yeah,
I have like 10 other thoughts about that
too.
And
there are so many resources through faith organization, nonprofits in Concord, but when you say we need to be there for them, from the role of the city council, what does that actually mean? What are the specific things the city council can do to be there for these residents?
Sure. We need to do a better job funding. Like I said, we should start a one-stop shop. We should be the spearhead of that, working with all those other service providers. Exeter has done this in the past very successfully. It saves a lot of time and money for people who are, like I said, stressed out. It also helps those partners collaborate much more directly, although they're in touch quite a bit. I also will point out, and I realize this isn't the city's role, although I believe it should be, and that is there is no ability for Concord itself to raise the minimum wage for Concord. That has been discussed at the legislature to have enabling legislation for that. I actually co-sponsored a bill on that before as a state rep. But we definitely need to pay workers more. I mean, Tim Russell, when he passed, had a full-time job washing dishes at a local restaurant. How does that happen? I know exactly how that happens. The wages are too low. So we need to do a better job as a community when someone's doing all the right things to make sure that, for the work that you do, you're able to do the very basics of the dignity of a modest existence. There are other things we could do, but
I do want to move on to another topic here just because we're short on time. Concord carries an unassigned fund balance, which some people call a rainy day fund or a surplus, of more than $15 million. As a proportion of its operating expenses, that is more than the vast majority of other cities and towns in New Hampshire. Do you think that Concord should spend down some of this surplus in the next few years? Are we approaching that rainy day? And regardless of whether or not you think that should happen, what do you think are the best and appropriate sources for that money?
Sure. I think that we absolutely should look at that as an option. We need to reduce costs, maybe delay some of our bigger projects. I have some thoughts about that, but those are conversations we should have as a community.
Which projects?
Well, I do believe we can look at things like the police, potentially the police headquarters moving. Maybe that's something we can put off by a year. Maybe other things that we're looking at doing, that aren't as urgent. I think roads are one thing. If we've scheduled that, that's one thing. I mean, we just really have to look at those bigger projects. But I don't think we should be scared of looking at this as a rainy day. Costs are really expensive. Wages haven't kept pace with expenses. Property taxes continue to get more complicated and difficult. Add to that healthcare costs, childcare costs, all the things that people are juggling just to survive. And then, like me, if you're a renter, your rent never goes back down if the rent goes up because of property taxes. So I really feel like we need to do what we can to help our community and provide those services. But I also think that that is a potential source to tap. I don't think we should be afraid of doing that. And I voted that way last night at the city council meeting with when we discovered that the costs that we had, or the revenue that we had expected wasn't on pace with what we had budgeted for. So I think we need to, why have a rainy day fund if you don't use it when you need it?
Sure. I do want to pivot before we wrap up to the conversation around Loudon Road. As you mentioned, 2 deaths just in the last couple of months. What do you think are the short-term changes that need to happen on Loudon Road? And we have this master plan conversation coming up. What do you think Ward 9 wants to see Loudon Road look like in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years?
Sure. The area of Woodcrest Heights, which is near the one of the new car washes and the Dairy Queen, as well as one of the businesses there that provides daycare for adults. Mm-hmm. Both of those folks that are very close in proximity had already started a process that our transportation committee has been addressing. I think that is a need for a lighted, with a, you push a button, the lights blink, you can cross. I think we need a safer crossing there. We also need to look at measures that we can do to slow down traffic. Some of that might be, we do typically have 2 police officers in the Heights. I know we could provide more of that time to be in monitoring traffic. I also think we need to do a good old-fashioned public service campaign to, obviously, if you live in the Heights, you're very aware. I drive past the memorial to one of the folks who died multiple times a day because it's right near where I live. I feel like for those of us that live in the Heights, it's very present. But for those that are entering the Heights to do business in the Heights, I feel like we could do a much better job, whether it's, a public relations campaign, advertising of some sort. I feel like we could do a better job with signing, with road painting. I mean, we missed one opportunity in not having what they call the road diet a couple years ago. That was in 2018. And it's so funny when you talk to people at the city, they cite that as well. We could have fixed it then. Well, we didn't. So we have to deal where we are now, regardless of how you felt about the changes in traffic that folks were looking at back then. Mm-hmm. So I think we could look at, anything from eliminating some of the curb cuts. Like, for example, at Irving, there are 2 entrances and exits. You can both enter and exit from 2 different points, and they're very close in proximity. Maybe we should shut one of those down. That could help. Certainly more blinking lights to signal if someone is nearby. I mean, we could do a lot of different things.
Great, thank you. And with that, it's time for your closing statement.
Oh my goodness, that went so fast. Well, like I said at the beginning, it would be such an honor to serve for another term, and I do ask for your vote if you're in Ward 9. I feel very strongly that we're a community of compassion and empathy, and I'm very excited about the process around the master plan. If you haven't heard about that, I hope you will tune in and listen, regardless of who wins in this next election, and participate. If you have the time to watch this video, I hope that means you care enough about our city to come give your input, because this is a time where it is a true citizen input for what we all want and need. I'm hoping that some interesting ideas that I've heard raised by citizens can really be taken seriously. And I'm really looking forward to that process and having more listening sessions in the Heights and working with especially my Ward 8 counterpart, whoever that person may be.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank you all for tuning in. I want to thank Concord TV for having us once again in studio. And I want to encourage you all to check out the Concord Monitor's voting resource, Concord Votes. It's on our website. And we'll see you all on November 4th. Thank you.